Hello, I'm Kay from the Astra team, and in this video, I will show you how to optimize your WordPress website to make it faster so you can go from this to this. And you can even attain an almost perfect score if you use the cherry on the cake that I will talk about later on in this video. Now, according to Google, the probability of bounce increases 32% as page load time goes from 1 second to 3 seconds. And if you're wondering what the bounce rate is, well, the bounce rate is defined as a percentage of visitors that leave a web page without taking an action, such as clicking on the link, filling out a form, or making a purchase. Now, if you've spent time or money or both building an amazing website, you probably want that website to perform. And as you can see, every second counts when it comes to the performance of your website. A common complaint with theme builders like Elementor is that they slow down your website. But that is mainly because the users don't optimize it well. And it is fixable. Now, what is even easier is to use a speed-oriented website builder such as Spectra. But since you're watching an Elementor course, today I will share with you optimization tips and tools to make your Elementor website load faster. Now, before we dive in, let's dig deeper and let's take a look at why a WordPress website could be slow in the first place. Now, there are many reasons, but we want to keep things simple here, and we want to give you actionable tips that you can actually start implementing today. And in my opinion, it comes down to just a few things. So the first thing to look at is the quality of the web hosting company, of course. And for that, Google is your friend. Now, the next thing to take into consideration about a web hosting company is where are these servers located? Now, earlier in this course, we already talked about the servers and how it works when it comes to web hosting. But basically, the server is a supercomputer that's going to serve your website to the rest of the world. So for example, if your website is hosted on one side of the earth and someone tries to access it from the other side of the earth, then it's going to take more time for the website to display to that specific user. Now, there are solutions and we'll talk about it later in this video. Now, the next element that can make your WordPress website slower is the theme you're going to use for your website. Because once again, not themes are created equal. Now, we've all been there. We go on marketplaces and we see those nice shiny themes, and some of those themes are really great, but is it at the expense of speed? And a lot of time it is. Now, personally, I remember when doing client work, some clients would come and say, hey, I have a slow website, can you fix this? And the first thing I looked at is what is the theme? And sometimes those themes, they are poorly coded, and that's the first issue. Now, forget about the bells and whistles, and what you should be looking for is a WordPress theme that is lightweight and minimizes the HTTP requests. And you're in luck because first of all, you're on the Brainstorm Force channel, which happens to be the creator of the most popular theme of all time, the Astra WordPress theme, with more than 2 million active installs and names like NASA, Google, and Stanford University using it. Well, it is because Astra is a super fast WordPress theme. Now, if you've been following the rest of the course and if you're also building the website project, then you've been using Astra. But for those of you that landed on this video and didn't follow the rest of the course, now you know that the choice of the theme is essential. Now, the next element that can slow your WordPress website down is plugin, or shall I say plugins. Because first of all is the number of plugins. You should try to keep it to a minimum, but it's not always feasible. Some very complex websites have a lot of plugins. But once again, the rule of thumb is trying to get as little plugins as possible. But now the next thing, even if you have very few plugins or whether you have a lot of plugins, the next thing is the quality of the plugins. Once again, just like for the themes, if the plugins are poorly coded, then you're going to get poor performance. So always try to get plugins from established developers, established companies that have a proven track record. Now, that doesn't mean that you should rule out newcomers, but you should carefully monitor the health of your website once you install a new plugin. So we've talked about web hosting, about WordPress themes and plugins, but now let's talk about images because that's probably the first source of slow websites. And to illustrate that, let me tell you a little story. So one day someone calls me and tells me, hey, I got your number from such and such, and I heard you are a web designer, and I have this huge issue with my website. It is super slow. So he proceeds on telling me he was not happy with what the web designer did and asked me if I could fix it, basically. So before I could give that person a quote, I said, hey, can I take a look at the website first? So they send me the URL. So I went to look, and the first thing I look is the weight of the images, just with the inspector tools. And I found out that the main image, the first image that you see on the page, was like 20 or 25 megabytes. Megabytes. Yeah. So actually, the web designer, the previous one, made a good job with the website, but it was just that image that the client himself changed without knowing better. So you cannot really blame the client if he didn't know how to deal with images. But we're going to talk about this later in this video. So I can show you how to optimize images from 20 plus megabytes to 200, 100, you choose. So now let's take a look at how we can optimize our WordPress website. So for this video, we will start with a website that we will call Site A. Then we will clone it, make all the changes in the clone, and this one we will call Site B. So then we can measure Site A versus Site B. And now we can go to Pingdom Tools and test Site A. Now all these testing sites, I would advise take it with a grain of salt, but use it more as a measurement unit. So first of all, I'm going to paste the URL. And next for the server, I'm going to test from Europe, Germany, Frankfurt. Then click on Start Test. Okay, so performance grade is C71. The page size is 5.5 and the load time is already pretty good, 1.20 seconds. So quite fast. And we have 41 requests. But the performance grade is C71. Now, if you want to know about performance grades in Pingdom Tools, you can just scroll down and just read the documentation. Next, let's go into the WordPress admin. We've cloned Site A, and this is now Site B, as I mentioned. And now we're going to go to Settings, Reading. And here where you see for each post in the feed include, you want to make sure it's set to excerpt and then click on Save Changes. Next, if you're using the Astra theme, you want to hover over Astra and click on Dashboard, then go to Settings and Performance. And here we're going to toggle the option to optimize inline CSS and to load Google Fonts locally. Next, select Preload Fonts. And just to be on the safe side, we're going to flush the local font files. Next, go to Elementor, Settings, Advanced, and make sure the CSS print method is set to external file, then click on Save Changes. Next, click on the Features tab. Now scroll down and you may want to activate the lazy load background images. Basically what this does is that when images are not in the viewport, which means users cannot see the images, they are not loaded. They only get loaded once they get in the viewport. So for that, you would set it to active and then click on Save Changes. Now I'm not going to do it here because I'm going to use another tool later that actually does it. If I'm correct, WordPress also does it natively now. Next, make sure that improved asset loading, improved CSS loading, as well as optimized Gutenberg loading and optimized image loading are set to active. And you see it with the green dot here next to the feature. And once you get everything set, just click on Save Changes. All right, we're getting there. Next, let's optimize our website images. Now let's take a look at this image here. As you can see here in the Finder, the size of this image is 12 megabytes or 12,000 kilobytes, which is way too much. I would advise 200, 300 tops. In some cases, with pictures where your foliage is very hard to compress, so it could be a bit more. But the lesser it is, the better. As long as you keep quality, of course. So I'm going to show you how to address this. Now, the first way you could optimize this image is just go to a website called squoosh.app. It's a free website. I'm just going to drag this image and drop it here. And then you can see a pop-up here. I'm just going to select WebP. So don't select WebP v2 because it's unstable. So I'm going to select WebP. And then I'm going to change the quality. So let me set it at 80%. Now let me maximize this. As you can see here, you can see the difference in quality. Now it's a bit too big. I'm going to zoom out. And here you can see the difference in quality. So here at 80%, it's a reduction of 98%. So it's 253 kilobytes. I'm just going to save this and save. And now if we open the Finder, we can see the original here, 12 megabytes, and the new one here, 253 kilobytes. So here is the original, and here is the optimized version. Can you tell the difference? Because even from here, I can't. So I doubt you will see it with the compression on YouTube. Now let's open the calculator and let's divide 12,000 by 253. So we've divided the weight of this image by 47 times. Would you believe me if I told you I can do even better? So let me close this. And for this, my tool of choice would be Affinity Photo 2 or Photoshop. But let me show you a free alternative. And it's a website called Photopea, and it's completely free. You just get those ads here on the side if you stay on the free version. But with the magic of editing, I can actually get rid of this. All right, next, you want to go to File, click on Open. And here I'm going to select my original file, the one that is 12 megabytes, and click on Open. All right, next, you want to go to Image, Image Size. And you can see here that the resolution is super high. This is the type of resolution you get from stock images, or even if you took an image with a recent camera. So let's change this to 2560. Why 2560? Well, just because it's above the 1920 that we used to use as a resolution. So it's better for Retina screen, but at the same time, it's not so big that the file is going to be so big also. So if I click on the height field, it automatically changes the size to keep the ratio. So click on OK. Great. Next, you want to go to File, Export As, and we're going to select WebP. So just like in the squoosh.app website we saw previously, we're going to choose WebP. So here I can just drag around. Here is my image. And here I have a quality slider, just like in the previous tool. So here, if I leave it on 80%, the image is still looking quite good. So here, and let me show you, if I go to 0%, you see how the quality is degraded. So let me put it back at 80%, and you can play with this depending on the size, the file size you're trying to achieve. And I can see here that the file size is estimated at 71 kilobytes. So this looks good to me. Let me click on Save, and let's add a little C and click on Save here. Now let's go back. Here is my original image. This is the one I optimized with squoosh.app, and this is the one we just optimized. Actually, let me just remove the one we created with squoosh.app so that we'd only have the original one and the one that we just optimized with Photopea. Now, once again, I don't know about you, but I cannot tell a difference from here. And bear in mind, I'm looking at a Retina screen, so I should see if there was any difference. So once again, let's open our calculator and let's divide 12,000 by 71. And ladies and gentlemen, we just divided the size of the original image by 169. Yes, you heard it right. So we went from 12,000 kilobytes to 71 kilobytes with no visible loss of quality. Now just repeat this process for all images on your website and you can just imagine the impact. Now we're not done yet. So we are on site B. Let's click on Edit with Elementor. And next, let's select our first container here, our hero container. Then go to Style. And here, just below the image, you can see we have image resolution. So right now it's using the full resolution for the desktop, which is more than likely what you want, especially if you optimize the image, because otherwise the quality might seriously get degraded, especially if people are going to watch this website on large monitors or Retina monitors. You want the best quality. And we've already optimized the image. But now if we go into tablet mode, well, now maybe we don't need a full resolution. So here we can change the resolution just for the tablet mode. And for example, we can make it large like this. And you really have to do this on a case-by-case basis. Yes, it takes a little bit of time, but that's how you optimize your website. So if you think the quality is not good enough, you can always take it a step higher. For example, you can take this size, 536 by 536, Once you're happy with it, you can move on to the mobile. And now for the mobile, let's try medium large. And that still looks great to me. And that means that the already optimized image is again getting optimized by Elementor. And by doing that, not only are you doing a service to the website viewers, but also to yourself, because your website is going to be more performant. Now, if you want to take this even further, you could actually open the image in your tool of choice, copy the image, then create a new file with a mobile format, just paste the image, and then you can just optimize the image and really make the image you want for that specific device. And then when you're going to save it and use the techniques that I showed you previously, you might end up with a 20 kilobyte file or 30 kilobyte file, and that's going to be even more optimized for the different devices you're working on. But that means more work, and I told you we're going to keep things simple, but I just wanted to show you the scope of things you can do if you really want to optimize your images. Next, using a caching plugin. Now, I know that I've told you should minimize the number of plugins on your website, but when it comes to a caching plugin, you should not skip it, because this is really a game changer when it comes to making your website more performant. But first of all, what is caching? So caching is storing copies of files in a cache so that cache content can be accessed quickly. So in other words, when you try to view a website through a browser, what happens is there is constant back and forth between your browser and the server. And your browser is asking, oh, can you load this code? Then he comes back, loads it, oh, can you load this code? And that's the way it goes back and forth. And if the server is far from where the user is viewing the website, then it takes even more time. And caching solves that by creating copies of files locally, thus reducing HTTP requests and thus making your website look faster. Now, if you go to the WordPress.org website and go to the plugin section, if you type cache, you will see there are plenty of results. Some of the big ones are the ones you see here on screen. But personally, when it comes to caching, my favorite plugin is called WP Rocket. And I've been using this plugin for years, long before I made YouTube videos. Now, WP Rocket is not free. It's a premium, in other words, paid plugin. Now, most of these plugins work in a similar way, so the interface might be different, but some of the options are the same. The real difference is how performant they are. So let me show you how it works with WP Rocket. So back in the WordPress admin, I am still on the site B. So let me go to plugins, add new plugin. Next, I click on upload plugin, and I'm going to click on choose file. Next, let me select the WP Rocket zip file and click on open. Then click on install now, and then click on activate plugin. So here is the plugins page. And by the way, this is a good time to show you to delete plugins you're not using. So let me select this one and this one, select delete, and click on apply. Okay. Next, just under the name WP Rocket, I click on settings, and let me show you the way that I personally set it. So first of all, let's go to cache. Make sure enable caching for mobile device is selected, and then click on save changes. Next, the file optimization tab, and here's where the magic happens. Now, a word of caution here. This may break things on your website, but no panic. But the way you should do it is maybe try it one by one, or select all the options and then just go and check if everything is working. And if it doesn't, you can deselect options one by one. And every time you make a change, don't forget to hover over WP Rocket here and click on clear and preload cache. So that is just gonna flush the cache, for lack of better image. Now let's try. So it gives you a warning that this could break things. So we're going to activate it. It's going to give us warnings for all these options. So I'm just going to activate it all. Load JavaScript deferred and delay JavaScript. Then click on save changes. Now let me close this. And I went pretty fast with this, but basically here is going to minify CSS file. It's going to remove spaces and it's just going to make everything more compact. So the file size of the CSS file is going to be smaller. Next, optimize CSS delivery. Once again, we just want to deliver the CSS when people need it. Same thing for minified JavaScript files. for low JavaScript deferred and for delayed JavaScript execution. All right, let's go back up, then click on media. And here I'm going to enable lazy load. If you recall, we also have this option in Elementor, but I knew I was going to use WP Rocket, hence why I'm just using it here and not in Elementor. But if you're not using this plugin or another caching plugin that has this feature, then you may want to enable it in the Elementor settings. So here I'm going to enable it. I'm going to enable it for CSS background images, for iframe in videos, and very important, I'm going to add missing image dimensions. These can really improve the speed of your website because sometimes you only have like the big images and you don't have the smaller ones when it's shown in a smaller scale. But once again, Elementor takes care of this, but I like to deal with it here in WP Rocket. So I'm going to click on Save Changes. Next, preload. So you want to make sure Activate Preloading is set to on and enable link preloading, which improves the perceived load time by downloading a page when a user hovers over the link, according to the WP Rocket documentation. Next, if you scroll down, we can see you can also preload fonts. Once you're happy with it, just click on Save Changes. Now, in case you're wondering, with preloading, WP Rocket will automatically detect your sitemaps and save all URLs to the database. So the plugin will make sure that your cache is always preloaded. All right. Next, we have advanced rules, but I said we were going to keep this simple, so I'm not going to use it here. And actually, I don't really use it that much. Next, we have the database, and here you can really unbloat your database. So if you have, I don't know, 4 million revisions, you may want to flush all of this. But here's a pretty new database, so no need here. CDN, we'll talk about it in a moment. Then we have Heartbeat. And in case you're wondering, the WordPress Heartbeat API is a great feature that provides real-time communication between the server and the browser when you are logged into your WordPress admin panel. So in other words, for this website, we don't really want or need to optimize this. Next, we have add-ons. We're not gonna talk about this now. Image optimization. This is another plugin from WP Rocket, but I already show you how to optimize your images. And honestly, yes, you can add some great plugins and they're going to reduce the file size of your images. But personally, I prefer to do it manually. Yes, it takes more time, but I really control the visual quality of the images and the file size. Whereas these tools, they can be great, but they can also put a lot of stress on your web hosting server or shared server, more than likely. And you don't really control the visual quality. I mean, if you do it in bulk, it's a bit complicated. So personally, I'd rather do it manually and make sure everything is the way I want it to be. All right, next we have tools. So you can export your settings, import your settings. And this is very handy if you have multiple websites and almost always using the same type of settings. And if you import the settings into a new website, some things may be different. So once again, always test. And that's what we're going to do right now. So I loaded the website in a new browser window. And I know that if I click on this button, it should take me to the next section. So let's test that feature and it's working great. Same for this button here. Let me click on it. Still working great. So my images and the buttons seem to be working, so that's fine. Now I've just opened yet another new browser window and this is site A. So the website without the optimization. And let me go from page to page. So this is an older version of our demo website. So if I click on the various pages, you can see how it is. And now let's go back to site B, so the website with optimization, and let's do the same test. And you can see how faster it gets with the caching plugin. One more time, site A, and contact, and back to home. And site B, optimize, about, services, contact, and back to home. And now once again, let me open Pingdom Tools. And now let's test it with site B. And don't forget that I replaced all the images with the images we optimized, changed all the settings, and added the cache plugin. So let me paste the URL, then click on Start Tests. And I'm going to speed this up. And there you go. Performance grade A97, the page size is 210 kilobytes, load time is less than half a second, and we have 15 requests. So let's compare it to site A, performance grade C71, page size 5.5 megabytes, load time 120, which is super good, but I suspect it's because it's not loading the image because of the lazy load. So it seems to be loading super fast, but if the image was actually loading, it would be way above 3 seconds, in my opinion. And here we have 41 requests. Because don't forget, site A is with unoptimized images. And now let's go back to site B. Beautiful. Now, at the beginning of this video, I told you that you could even go a step further and attain an almost perfect score, like 99, why not 100? And I mentioned this would be the cherry on the cake. And that cherry on the cake is called a CDN. Now, what is a CDN, or Content Delivery Network? Where a content delivery network is a distributed group of servers that caches content near end users. So in the example we gave previously, if the initial server is at one end of the planet and the viewer is at the other end of the planet, it's going to take some time, even if it's just mere seconds, but nowadays mere seconds is too much. So CDN solved that by serving a closer copy of the website. So if one user is in a specific location, then he will get served a copy of the website cached in the closest server to his location. Now, there are many CDN options out there, and one of the most popular ones is the free Cloudflare CDN. But of course, free means it comes with a limit. But if you're looking for a premium solution with more options, then look no further than WP Rocket, because they've launched Rocket CDN, which conveniently you can access from your dashboard. So here in the WP dashboard, all you need to do is click on CDN and click on Get Started. And now, wherever your website viewers are on the globe, they will get served the closest version possible, which will further boost its performance. So now that you are equipped with the knowledge about how to make your WordPress website faster, you are almost ready to launch your website. So in the next video, we will go through a checklist you should absolutely go through if you want your website launch to be a success. And that was good.